In a committed relationship, do you have the right to look through your significant other's devices? That's phones, that's tablets, that's laptops, for any of these potentially inflammatory interactions with others. This is actually a hard question. When we first started talking about this, I was like, oh, I think I got a pretty clear answer, pretty easy. But the more we thought about it, the more nuance there is. The more I sort of came up with, well, it depends type
It's circumstantial.
answers.
Your partner's decision making directly impacts your life now and your future and the life of your children if you have them.
Maybe this person has a public profile to some degree and you see that there are people who are of the opposite sex liking their photos and stuff, but it's coming from a place of just neuroses. That's where I was like, just like check yourself before you wreck yourself, because you could be doing more harm to the relationship.
If I found out that one of my girlfriends thought her boyfriend was cheating, her husband was cheating, and I found out that she looked at his phone, I wouldn't judge her at all. Welcome back to the Medicin podcast. My name is Mimi, and I'm sitting right next to my partner in life and love and podcasting and all things relationship, my beautiful blue-eyed, blue-shirted lover.
What is up, everybody? I'm realizing that I'm wearing the same tank top from the last episode we just dropped.
That's a great tank.
It's a great tank. It brings out my blue eyes.
It does. Every time you wear it, I'm like, God, your eyes match your shirt perfectly.
Well, the way things go in my closet, and when I say closet, I mean drawer of t-shirts and tank tops, is that if it's near the top, I wear it.
Yeah, same.
And this tank top was buried for a long time.
It's like, every month or 2 months, you need to go into your drawer. I'm saying this for me too, because I do this same thing. Just take the stack of clothes in your drawer and just go like that and
that's
flip
what
it
happened.
around.
We traveled, and so things got flipped upside down. This somehow got to the top, and so I've been wearing it lately. And we're back. You're getting 2 weeks in a row of me in this blue tank top. You may never see it again, or you may see it every episode from here on out.
Yeah.
So glad to be back on the Medicin podcast. And we are talking about a topic that we've danced around. We've talked about it a little bit, but it's questions that we get all the time pertaining to the appropriate use of technology under the domain of relationships, under the domain of sex, and how to integrate this world of social media, of dating apps, traditional text messaging and emailing into a relationship in the modern day. This is not something that has a bunch of history behind it, because technology continues to evolve.
Yeah.
Sex and sexual exchanges energetically through these mediums that we call phones and laptops are happening all the time, evolving all the time. We sort of came through the dating app emergence of when we were in our 20s or so, and it looks completely different now.
Yeah.
And social media continues to evolve. We've got thirst traps everywhere. It is a cesspool of ickiness when it comes to human beings exchanging sexual and relational messages and photos on these various devices. And how in the fuck are we supposed to navigate this with the big question of, when you get into relationship, what are the rules?
Yeah.
Is it okay to look through your partner's devices?
Do you have the right to look through your partner's phone?
And it's a loaded question.
Yeah.
The answer is yes, with a lot of depends and context, which we'll be getting to today. But there is a lot that sort of leads up to this question that we get all the time, which is, hey, can I look at his phone? Can I look at her phone? Do I have the right to do this without asking? Should I ask? How do I go about this? Yeah. And it's not just a simple, yeah, dude, totally. You should be able to comb through everything, or don't do that. It'll impact the trust dynamic of the relationship. So there's lots of depends. There's lots of context. And I think it's important just to set the stage a little bit as to what we're working with in 2023. This is wild, and there's a lot that goes into this, but today is just a free-flowing conversation to get down to answering that question in the best way possible. We've got experience with this. We've have a history of having to look through each other's devices to a certain degree as we were married and as our marriage was dissolving, it was something that was taking place. And so for anyone that might hear us talk today, just know that we do have context with this.
Yeah.
We have experience with this, and we are getting constantly flooded with questions pertaining to how we navigate this realm.
Yeah, it's hard. It's, like you said, there's no history to look back on. So much of like health and wellness, we can like point to our ancestors and like, what were they doing? Can we learn from them? How can we use that knowledge in the modern world of 2023? And there's not really any precedent for this. We are the first generation, I would say millennials are the first generation of having access to a cell phone from a very young age and having to navigate that within relationship. This big umbrella is something we're calling sex and technology ethics.
Yeah.
Where it's like these things are intricately interwoven in our world. And how do we navigate them consciously in a way that's supportive of us as individuals, of our relationship or the dating world, or, aligning yourself with a partner with similar values? There's just so much to this conversation. And my hope would be that although there is no history of ancestry that we can look back on, I hope that we, conscious individuals, people who are trying to live their life the best possible that they can, improve every day, and live in a conscious way in every aspect of their life. Hopefully, we can be those ancestors to people 100, 200 years from now that can like listen to this podcast or whatever it looks like and be like, okay, how were they navigating it? Maybe I can pull some information, some insights, some wisdom from their experience such that I can navigate this more consciously.
Consciousness, intention, upfront, vulnerable communication. These are kind of the pillars of this topic today. And whether you're already in a committed relationship and need to kind of step back and set these ground rules, whether you're completely single and curious about how to establish a baseline going into a relationship, or whether you are in a new relationship and this might be kind of the perfect time to bring this conversation up, this should apply to everybody and be really valuable, as it has been for us to evaluate in drafting the episode that we are today.
Yeah. Well, before we get into the meat of the conversation, what's in your cup, my love?
In my cup, in my mushy mug, I have none other than Mushy Love Cinnamon Swirl Latte, baby.
Love it.
And what I've been loving lately is combining Mushy Love with Qualia Mind. Qualia Mind from Neurohacker is the best nootropic supplement I've ever taken, and I've taken a ton of them. You'll probably recognize the brand, the name. They're a sponsor of the show. We run ads for Neurohacker on various episodes, and I am such a huge advocate of this product. We've taken it for years before they
coming
up on 7 or 8 years now,
years.
and just recently partnered with them. As we do, we take products for long periods of time, develop relationships with these brands, get to know the people, get to know the integrity of the products themselves, and this has a host of different nootropic benefiting ingredients, all of which in somewhat of a symphony behave in the human body. And there's a little bit of caffeine, but they also have a caffeine-free version. I don't even take the full dose. I take like a half dose, and I am dialed in, engaged. I tangibly notice a benefit as far as how tuned in I am, how present I am. I'm more able to articulate. I've got a database of just crazy things in my head. And with precision, I'm able to pull those bits of information out, regurgitate them in the form of a podcast. We just got done being guests on the Expanded Reality podcast. And I took Qualia Mind prior to that interview and am still rolling, like still feeling really, really great. And the reason I love taking it with Mushy Love Latte is there's a little caffeine in Qualia Mind. We don't put any caffeine in Mushy Love Latte, but it's got 1 gram of mushrooms, 500 milligrams of tremella, 500 milligrams of chaga, both of which support digestion, hydration. Our skin's been in the sun a lot this summer, a ton.
If you can't tell, if you're watching the video.
And if you're dry, like we can get when we're in and out of the water, in the sun, different climates as we travel throughout the summer, tremella and Mushy Love just at large, because chaga is supportive of this as well. My skin has maintained the level of buoyancy. Is that suppleness?
Dewy.
That one would only dream of because I've been taking Mushy Love. And then it's awesome just because it tastes so delicious.
Yeah.
And so I love the ritual. It's warm. It's cinnamon flavored. I steamed milk and mixed it with Mushy Love latte, just one heaping scoop.
Love it.
And so it has been just this beautiful combo of these two supplements that I love so much. If you want to check out Quality of Mind, which I would encourage everybody does so, I've given this to so many friends over the years.
It's not just for podcasters either. It's for anyone that wants to feel dialed in whatever they're doing. It could be a 9 to 5. It could be running a household. It could be podcasting. It could be creative work. It could be art.
Yep.
Anything where you need to enroll as much of your mind as possible.
Totally. And it's 5 days on, 2 days off. So, just take 2 days off a week from it. But you can take it pretty continuously as long as you're taking those little breaks. And you can use the code TheMedicin, all caps. That's TheMedicin for a huge discount. I think they sell Quality of Mind for around $140, but with our discount, you'll get that first bottle for like $39.
Yeah,
so
huge
it's a
discount,
crazy deal. And
it's a huge bottle.
It is. It's a huge bottle, and it's kind of dose dependent because you don't have to take the full dose to feel the effects, like I've articulated. Yeah. And then mixing it with Mushy Love. I mean, if you haven't tried Mushy Love yet, and you're listening to this is our baby. This is our product that we created out of our kitchen for years. Got it out to market, and you can always use the code Medicin, that's MEDICIN, at getmushylove.com. And you can always get 10% off. If you haven't tried it yet, I highly encourage it. Yeah. People absolutely love this thing. So do I.
I'm just selfishly, I'm really glad that we have a product in our lives, hopefully from here on out, that is supporting our insides, our skin, aging gracefully, that process. Like we do. We have access to it all the time. And I'm just so grateful because, sorry, but not as many people, no one talks about tremella. Hardly ever. I don't know why, but I'm glad we are.
Get on the tremella train, baby.
Tremella train.
I got to know what you got going on in your cup, in your glass.
Yes. Today, I don't have a mug. I have a glass of Peak Power from Organifi. So I'm going to be doing a workout after this podcast that we record. And so I wanted to get a little extra oomph, a little extra zhuzh in my body to help me in that workout. I'm going to be using a gift that Chase got me for my birthday a couple days ago. These blood flow restriction bands that it'll be my first time trying them. And I'm going to jump into that workout and wanted to give myself a little extra oomph. So this Peak Power, I have the bag right here. It's from Organifi, and it's in partnership with Mind Pump, which is one of our favorite podcasts and groups of people, educators in the fitness space. And they got together and basically created this pre-workout. And it's Organifi's strongest pre-workout. We use Red sometimes to increase blood flow and oxygen output and lung capacity, but this is a legit pre-workout. You tangibly feel this one. So much so, I actually give myself a little less than a full scoop because it is really powerful.
Yeah, me too.
It does have a little caffeine in it, but as always, Organifi completely nailed the formulation on this. It tastes really good. It's kind of just got like a little fruity, lemony, appley type flavor to it. It's really mild, but very good. I won't go through all the ingredients, but if you're looking for a clean, organic, glyphosate residue free option for a pre-workout that you feel, Peak Power is, I think it's one of the best pre-workouts that I've ever tried. And I love that it's not adding a bunch of garbage to my body, like red dye number 4 and purple dye number 40 and all of that garbage.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people, customers of Organifi, say this is my favorite Organifi product. Taste, how I feel, and so highly, highly recommended. Super clean.
Yeah. So if you guys want to try Peak Power or any of the Organifi products, we have a discount code with them. It's MimiFit, all caps, MIMIFIT, for 20% off all of your orders.
One last housekeeping item. Guys, if you're loving the show, we want to know. We would love to hear from you. You can reach out to us on social media. We hang out on Instagram mostly. Give us a DM. Let us know what you think of these episodes. We're constantly looking for feedback. We take your questions and comments and create episodes. So it is much appreciated. Even better is when you share it to your story. It helps other people see the content that we're putting out, help the show grow, bring resources in such that we can make this production even higher quality. And then we're on YouTube now as well. And we've been on YouTube for a few months, and we would much, much appreciate a subscribe. That's just the Medicin Podcast on YouTube. You can subscribe, leave a comment on the videos if you want to see our beautiful faces instead of just listening to the shows. You can check it out on YouTube. And we also have a weekly newsletter drop. It's called the Medicin Drop. And if you go to themedicin.com, you'll see a drop down that offers you an opportunity to jump into our weekly newsletter. Why would you want to do that besides just, hearing a little bit more from us? We're actually giving away free products every single week.
Yeah, like Peak Power, like Mushy Love, like AHCC, like all the things that we use in our life that would be in our medicine cabinet. Every single week, we're giving away a product.
There's a reason we do the What's in Your Cup segment, and it's because we have a passion for sharing the things that we consider medicines in the form of supplementation, in the form of elixirs, superfoods, drinks, capsules, powders, because they have been a part of these life-changing experiences that we've had in our life thus far. And this can be an expensive habit. It's a passion for us. We bite the bullet. We pay for a lot of these things, but not everybody should have to just to try something.
Yeah.
And so it is our intention and really our purpose to offer free products through our newsletter to people who are interested. So all you got to do is subscribe to the newsletter. Every week, you'll see a host of things in the newsletter drop, what's going on in our lives, the newest podcast episodes, learnings and breakthroughs that we've had, but also an opportunity to submit your name, email address, something along those lines, to get a free product. And we've got a new one every single week that comes out. So highly encourage everybody, if you are like, dude, all these guys talk about is freaking supplements, to get in the newsletter flow so that you can try some of these for free.
Yep. Easy. It's so easy. Just go to themedicin.com. There'll be a pop-up and you can put your information in and you'll be on the list.
Dope.
All right.
Sex and tech 2023. Yeah. This is the world that we live in. Man, it's like we were talking about the fact that this is really new and it's constantly changing. And so I think it's worth our time and effort just to pay respect to the challenges that are taking place in the relationship space right now.
Yeah.
This one's been around for a long time, unfortunately, but pornography is more prevalent than ever.
But what's different in 2023 is the accessibility.
Accessibility.
Yeah.
If you talk to my father's generation, it took, sneaking Playboy magazines from the gas station. Maybe a decade later, there were adult film stores.
Convincing an older brother to buy you a Playboy.
Right. It trickled into the internet era that we grew up in, where you had to sort of sneak online.
It started with AIM.
What's AIM?
Instant messaging. AOL instant messaging.
What started with that?
Just like the internet era of like finding sex chat rooms and things like that.
Sex chat rooms. I was on dial-up internet looking at typing boobs into Google image search and stuff. And there were still quite a few barriers to entry. And my friends and I, of course, were exposed to pornography when I was in middle school and high school, and it was accessible, not easily accessible, but you go use LimeWire or Napster and you think you're downloading a pirated movie and it ends up being a porno or something. And so there was some level of exposure, but now it is so prevalent, and it's not just going to pornographic websites, nor having to pay for some level of subscription or access to pornography. It's at the fingertips of every child who gets their phone at 4th grade or however young it starts, because of the internet accessibility to smartphones, which I don't even think they're called smartphones anymore. If
you don't want to view, it takes effort not to view these types of images.
Not only that, it's embedded in social media. So whether you are trying to or not, if you are sexually oriented, which most are, I swear to God, these algorithms are able to pick up your just innate tendencies and show you things that would be sexually interesting to you on your Explore pages, on Instagram, TikTok, even just mainstream news feeds, for instance, like yahoo.com. There are ads that pop up that are women in lingerie. And I'm not saying there's a problem with that at all, but it does play on human emotions and hormonal pathways that may not be mature enough to handle them, such that you just continue down a rabbit hole that starts with a lingerie picture and turns into hardcore porn or something even more intense. All of these then trickle into relationships.
Yeah.
The relationship with yourself, of course, your body, your own sexuality. But then when you get to the point of engaging in romantic partnership, your girlfriends, your boyfriends, your dating relationships, your marriages, and it is very, very difficult to navigate pornography at large, whether or not you've developed a healthy relationship to it, an abstinence to it altogether, or just an unconscious consumption with it that may be unhealthy. It is a factor, and it is a challenging factor, regardless of whether you've gotten to a place where you're healthy or unhealthy with it.
Yeah. And I think piggybacking on the accessibility topic is because it's so accessible, it's been normalized by so much of society, where how many times have you heard just like, dude, everyone looks at porn.
Right.
And so it's normalized. And so say a woman gets into a relationship and she wants to be in a relationship with a man who doesn't look at porn. Nothing wrong with that. BT dubs. I happen to be one of those women. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being okay with it or being like, you know what, I would prefer it not be a part of our relationship. But because it's so accessible and normalized, you all of a sudden are the weird one where it's like, well, what's wrong with you? You're trying to like infringe upon my freedom and just like get with the times, basically. Yep. And so that's hard too between couples.
So we've got porn. All right, let's put that on the side. What do you do in the domain of relationships as it pertains to the use of pornography or sexually explicit images? Because they're everywhere. So that's clearly one challenge.
And then I would say another challenge related to technology in the realm of social media and dating apps is when couples face challenges, and previously where there is not such accessibility to swiping and finding another girl or DMing with a hot girl or whatever. If that doesn't exist, people might be more inclined to work through their challenges versus today, there's always something else. There's always a swipe away. You can be talking to someone else. So in young budding relationships, when you first meet that, that first conflict or that first charged situation, because of the temptation of there's something else out there that could be better than what I'm experiencing, this shouldn't be that hard. Newsflash, relationships, no matter how conscious you or your partner are, they are going to have times of challenge, difficult situations, and charged conversations. You cannot get away from that in a relationship. So it's like, I think it's just all too easy to skirt and be like, there's something better.
This is my cupboards are always stacked with shitty food problem. Throughout history, we didn't have Cheetos available to us when we were hungry. So we had to put our, hunting gear on, go out, find the animal or forage for the berries and the roots and create a whole food experience that is ultimately going to be nutritious and dense for our own
and
vitality.
You're grateful for it.
And you're grateful for it. You've worked for it. But you got to put the work in. We live in an era where junk food is readily available at all times. So it's significantly harder, even though it's better for you, to work to get your food. And what that looks like in today's age is to walk down to the grocery store, choose only the good whole foods or your local farmer's market or something along those lines, put forth a wholesome, robust whole foods meal and consume it such that you are giving yourself that nutrient density and avoiding the ease of immediate food, whether that's frozen food that's full of shit or Cheetos or something along those lines. Well, that's the same issue that we're talking about here as it pertains to technology, sex, and relationships. Instead of going, God, I've got to work through these relationship challenges with my partner to get to the other side such that we can have this nutrient-dense connection. We go, well, you know what? There's some fucking Cheetos in the cupboard, and I'm feeling hungry. And let me go to the DMs where I'm going to thirst trap someone into getting a little bit of validation. So maybe I'll take a picture and put it up on my Instagram that, shows my ass in a particular way. And even if that's relatively innocent, it's kind of trickling down this lane of easy steps, cheaper steps to being validated, which is not the same as being fulfilled deeply by a relationship. Or it can look like, I'm just going to resort to going and, I don't feel like I can properly connect with my female significant other and I'm a guy. I'm going to go find girls who are thirst trapping on my explore page, and I'm going to heart a bunch of pictures or drop in like a comment like, damn girl, or like DM somebody like, where are you from? Like something like, I don't even know how that fucking works or if that's what people say, but that's available. Or you go back to the dating app and maybe you've hit it off with a girl that you've gone on a couple of dates with, but you're hitting that relationship charge for the first time. And you're like, screw this. I'm going to keep swiping on the app. I'm going to keep my options open. I got other very quick ways to get full, if you will.
Yeah. And there's nothing inherently wrong.
No.
Like there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to look at the thing behind the thing and the intention going into it. And this is where throughout this entire conversation, we're going to keep bringing this up. You have to be able to use your wise adult discernment and understand, is the energy that I'm putting towards this thing, whether it be pornography, DMing some chick because I'm having issues with my girl, or thirst trapping guys, even though I have a boyfriend, I just want some extra validation to know that I'm still sexy. Like, examine honestly the intention and the energy that's being put towards that. And really try to, see if you can reallocate some of that energy towards your current relationship.
So you've got these little pseudo relationship junk food snacks that are available at all times. This is the messaging. This is the DMs. This is the commenting on people that you don't really know, but it feels like sort of an emotional release or some pseudo emotional fulfillment.
Feels exciting.
And so this is kind of like the messaging DM world. So we've got images, pornography over here, and now we've got the challenges with the pseudo relationship in the form of messaging and DMs. I think another one that comes up for me is that in the ocean that is the internet and these communities on the internet, of course, Instagram, social media, and these different influencers, is that if you've got a challenge in a relationship, whether you're single and not able to find folks, or you're married or in a new relationship, there's going to be a community that's going to validate you as long as you go looking for it. The answer to your question is yes, wherever you go. And so let's say it's exclusivity monogamy and you're an advocate for monogamy, yet your partner is not. You can go find all the communities in the world that are going to advocate for strict monogamy. But the same thing with a polyamorous relationship. If you've got this idea that, our relationship should be open, you can go out and find the same validating community and really intellectualized justification for that.
You could find research on it.
Quite literally, you could find research on two things that are completely separate, yes, yet both validate those completely separate points. And so you've got internet justifications everywhere. And there's so many people in the world at large that now have this access through the interweb to be able to find little pockets of communication that if you are externalizing what's right for you through justification from other people and lifestyles, it's never going to be clear, nor is it going to be a super solid data point for you to consider in your own life decisions.
Right.
Should it be looked at for helpful insight? Maybe.
Yeah. Hearing other people's experiences. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're pinning that, if you're looking to that to give you your answers, it's like, well, like you said, you can find the answer. The answer is yes, depending on where you look.
Totally. So I think in this realm, we've got this sort of like exclusivity. When am I in a relationship? Should I ever be in a relationship that's exclusive or monogamous, or should I keep it open? Should I keep it loose for a long time, casually roll in a relationship, and then expect it to be polyamorous in some way where there's multiple parties, there's multiple options on the table, and that's a challenge in the current world.
Yeah.
And so we've got we're bucketing these different lanes, and that's definitely one of them.
I think another challenge in this tech social media world is comparisonitis.
Totally.
I think for men, it might be more like individual based, where you're looking at status of another man. Oh, he's got the car, he's got the watch, he's got the job, he's got the girl, he's got all of this that I want. which might hold you back from wanting to maybe put your energy towards like an actual relationship, like a fulfilling relationship, because you think that you need to go and achieve and get all these things before you jump, which there might be a case for that for sure. But it could definitely hold guys back. I think also on the flip side for the feminine, we tend to, I think most women would agree with me here, instead of like idolizing like an individual, social media is a wealth of comparisonitis of maybe like a couple or a life a relationship that they have
Keeping
together,
up with the Joneses on steroids.
Yeah, totally. Where it's like, oh, they look so happy. Oh, he treats her so well on her Instagram page. And like, you have no actual idea how these people like interact with each other. You cannot make conclusions based off of someone's curated Instagram page, yet we do it all the time.
Proof. When we got divorced, too many times for me to count, people's feedback and comments were like, oh, you guys, you're so beautiful and so happy, and everything that I saw on your Instagram looked like life was amazing.
Yeah, people aren't necessarily posting the ugly parts of their relationship or their lifestyle or their life in general. Like, we all know this deep down. It's not new information, yet we forget it all the time as our thumb sits there and scrolls for miles. Totally. It's so easy to get locked in on like, I want what she has. I want what he has.
The other thing I would say is that I'm going to give the caveat first of there are some so awesome influencers out there. I've learned so much from the influencer era that we're in. And some might call us influencers because we have a podcast and you have a pretty big social media. So no shade to the quality that's being put forth from people out there. But there are a large population of influencers and coaches who are giving you advice based on their own life experience, where they are the influencer and their livelihood and their occupation is the influencer. And they live in a completely different world than most traditional, normal human beings who have W-2 jobs and they're working roughly 40 hours a week and they're commuting and maybe they have a kid and maybe they live in suburbia or they live in an urban environment. And the context with which these influencers are advocating for particular lifestyle habits is completely alien to the reality of most individuals. Mm-hmm. And so, one of the things that drives me nuts is you get these money coaches and these money influencers talking about how to make money and money mindset on Instagram. And they're giving you advice on how to make money by their experience making money off of you by telling you what to do on how to make money. How is that going to apply to the person who's an engineer? Mm-hmm. How is that going to apply to the person who needs to understand tax law in order to progress up the firm such that they can be at a senior manager level? Mm-hmm. It is pseudo personal development advice, and it drives me insane because you have to start with the practical, the tactical advice before you can get to the thematic, archetypical, more personal development type themes that are going to be important. And we're skipping this step of real technical work that needs to be done. And relationships is the same way. You see lots of relationship influencers who get so esoteric, and people at the end of the day need brass tacks advice. Mm-hmm. Like, dude's been, DMing some girl on his Instagram page. What am I supposed to do with that?
What do I do?
Great. I love the masculine and the feminine and the beautiful.
It's poetic, but it's not practical.
Right. Like how do we get to just brass tacks first?
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm seeing that. I'm feeling that. I also think that we've probably not gotten straight to the technical at times. And so I'm willing now to be like, boom, let's get to this. So there is a world. And so we'll bucket this one kind of as the keeping up with the Joneses, this idyllic sort of pseudo reality that exists on the internet that should not be used as the context point for how to change or try to improve your relationship.
Yeah. I think it's important to talk about all of these challenges because it does just add to the foundation of, man, we're all navigating this to some degree, unless you're completely off technology. We're all navigating this to some degree. And if you're in a relationship, it's now another aspect to the relationship that we have to think about, that we have to talk about, that we have to hopefully talk about earlier rather than later, so we can make sure that our core values are aligned here. But there are a lot of challenges, and the list that we just provided is not exhaustive. There's, potentially unending challenges as it relates to sex and technology. These are just some of them, but we do want to spend a good amount of this episode talking about how do we consciously navigate? How do we act in a solution oriented way? How do we set up a relationship such that we can maybe avoid some of these conflicts later on? How do we ensure that we have shared values in some of these areas with our prospective partner that we're dating or just getting exclusive with? Like, hopefully this last half of the episode can be more solution oriented and provide real solutions for people.
So we've laid out the landscape and these various challenges that are taking place, and we're drilling down into this big question, which is, do I have the right to look at my partner's phone, tablet,
computer,
laptop,
email? Yeah.
And again, we've said the answer is yes, with a lot of context and with a lot of depends. Before you get to that question, I think, and I would suggest, a ground rule conversation. Going back to the beginning of the episode, we said consciousness, intention, communication with vulnerability and authenticity. That is the sweet spot for preventing a lot of these challenges. If you have the opportunity, have this conversation early. Set the ground rules early. And we're going to kind of go through each one of these on what we would expect from that. So I suggest anyone, if you're not in a relationship and you're single, have this in your back pocket. Maybe even be open about it as you entertain dating somebody, that, hey, I'm going to want to inevitably have this conversation. If you're early in a relationship, great time, probably the perfect time to have this conversation. If you're in a marriage, if you're in a long-term relationship, a committed relationship, never too late. Might be a little tough to readjust things when certain patterns and habits have been established, but take the space, clearly communicate. I want to have this conversation. This is where it's important. Let's set the ground rules as it pertains to sex and technology and the relationship at large. And so there's this level of prioritization and ground rule setting, mostly just a host of questions that we should be asking. We'll give you our answers on this process, but let's take everybody through what we would suggest a rule setting. I don't like the word rule because I fucking hate rules.
Guidelines. It's points of conversation. It's things to be thinking about.
Right.
It's not ground rules. I mean, you can call it whatever you want. We're using ground rules as, for lack of a better term, but this is just how we would approach it. And we're giving our best answers based on our historical experience, moving in this world a little bit, and then coming through, the huge amount of like self-development and wisdom that we've acquired. And now in part 2, with some level of consciousness to our relationship, how would we handle it now?
Yeah. So, I mean, first and foremost, exclusivity. Is this a monogamous relationship? This conversation is a little easier when you're in the initiation phase of a relationship. Might be a little more obvious if you've been in a relationship for a while. Yeah. But maybe decent enough to check in just to say, hey, we're in a committed, exclusive, monogamous relationship, right? Or, hey, it was my understanding that we're open. Yeah. And so maybe before you even get into the use of technology specifically, it would be, are we in an exclusive relationship, a monogamous relationship, or a polyamory scenario? Yeah,
I have plenty of girlfriends that thought they were in an exclusive dating relationship to the point where they would call the guy my boyfriend, but he wasn't on the same page, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a lack of communication. Sometimes the lack of communication is intentional on whoever's part. Maybe it's both. Avoiding the topic. I'm sure you experienced that. I know you experienced that. I experienced that when we were separated and dating other people. We were thrust into a completely different dating landscape than when we were dating in high school. Like in your late 20s, it's like, I got to figure this new world out. And so there are a lot of things to think about, talk about, and sort of navigate as you date in 2023. This is just one of them. The beginning, the first sort of important conversation before you get into any sort of, you shouldn't be doing this, you should be doing that, you shouldn't be, here's what I want for the relationship. Dude guy might be like, dude, we're not even exclusive. So that has to be a conversation very early on before anything related to sex and technology ethics.
Yeah. And to answer this question for us, we are in a exclusive monogamous relationship. Thus, it sets up the way we would answer kind of the rest of these questions pertaining to those categories of challenge that we mentioned. And so then moving into probably the next appropriate question, we would enter into the realm of the sexually explicit images. And that can be everything from pornography all the way to thirst trap booty pics on Instagram. And the question would quite literally be, are we entertaining the freedom to look at, explore, or engage with those sexually explicit images?
And for some people, it might be part of your relationship.
Right.
It might be something that you both like and you both want, is like, hey, look at this girl, or hey, look at this guy, or like you're bringing other people's images, whether it be porn or Instagram or whatever, into the relationship, and both people are consenting to that. Both people want that. They find it exciting, whatever. If that works for you, great. The mismatch happens, I think, a lot when one person wants it and one person doesn't, or one person thinks that it's okay, it's fine, it's not cheating, I'm just looking. Or, hey, I'm just posting pictures. Like I'm just working out and showing my booty as I do deadlifts or squats or whatever. What's wrong with that? Right. I think guys get a lot more flack in this conversation around sex and technology because porn is so accessible and it's so deteriorating to the individual and the relationship. But also, I want to highlight, we've talked about it a little bit, but the feminine or women in general, guys do this too, but certainly women who want to feel desired, sexy, attractive, the easiest way to do that is to have a following. Even if you is only a few hundred people or a few thousand people, you can get a lot of like pseudo validation from putting up a certain type of picture.
Yeah.
And so like, we have to look at the intention behind that too. Like, are you not feeling as fulfilled in your own body or your relationship with self or your sexuality, your sensuality? You feel like you need to put it out there and get validation in return. Like, it might be something to examine that's not the healthiest expression of who or what you could be.
Yeah, I think in this category of sexually inclined images and photos on the internet or social media, it's easy to go, oh, dude, that's guys. That's guys just jerking off to porn or to Instagram influencers, doing squats zoomed in on their ass. And that is, I mean, there's a ton of truth to that. But I think you're right. That it doesn't mean it's just for, this is men's problem, because the masculine is energy out. So it's the heart, the zoom in, the the DM, reaching out, which we'll get to messaging shortly. But for the feminine, it's energy in. And so it's magnetizing that sort of penetrating energy from the masculine into the feminine through more explicit or suggestive images. And so it plays a little bit differently, but it hits both the feminine and the masculine, which in this context, we're speaking to men and women, men being masculine, women being feminine. Of course, I don't particularly get hung up on the fact that can go both ways. But in this case, yes, very important to articulate. And I would say that important to articulate in the dynamic of a relationship is this ground rule that neither one of us are going to exchange in this type of activity. I also think and believe that it's possible to have both individuals partake in sexually inclined or suggestive images, both from a masculine perspective and a feminine perspective, and still have a healthy and robust relationship. I believe that that's possible. But I believe that that's rare. And I believe that it's the minority.
It's a slippery slope.
And that it can cause more damage by thinking that you can do it and then falling off the wagon than being able to do it successfully. And so proceed with caution.
Yeah. I think when things are great in your relationship and you're having a ton of sex early in your relationship, and once in a while you look at, booty pics or whatever on Instagram, it feels like something that you could let go very easily and totally be fine. When things start to get tough in a relationship, or maybe sex declines, maybe someone is going through a chronic illness and they don't feel up to engaging in sex, or you have a baby and she's in a healing phase or whatever. Like, there's so many life circumstances that would just dangle that little temptation of porn or Instagram booty pics or whatever out here, and it's like, well, you've been doing it. It's totally fine, and you need this. You deserve this.
Yep.
I'm not saying it's completely wrong, but without some sort of awareness and I think awareness to your intention and a conversation with your partner, I think that it's a slippery slope.
So you've got a guy who, let's say, is married and is unable to get it up in bed. And, the relationship's been going on a while. They had a great sex life to begin with, ton of sexual attraction, but maybe there's a kid involved, maybe there's busy jobs involved, and they are having erectile dysfunction in the bedroom. And it has nothing to do with hormones, let's say, but rather sexual appetite for their partner. And the wife is like, okay, fine, yeah, totally fine, totally normal. This happens all the time. Happens all the time with men. Totally get it. It's just off. But then the next day or later, she sees him masturbating to porn. How does that not hurt her? Mm-hmm. How does she not draw the conclusion that it's me? Mm-hmm. So that's where I see it going wrong. And then vice versa. You've got maybe you've got a woman who's uninterested in sex with her husband. He's ravenous beyond all belief, but she's just completely closed off to sexual activity. But he finds her, snapping photos and putting it online or sending it to people in a way that would be suggestive, as if she's got this sexual appetite for to be penetrated. Mm-hmm. How does that not hurt him? How does he not think that has nothing to do with him? So this conversation is important to set the ground rules to prevent this type of thing, or to allow this kind of thing if you're a fucking wizard when it comes to navigating that in a relationship. Right. For us, and maybe I'll let you speak. How what have we agreed to as it pertains to sexually suggestive images?
Yeah, well, porn is not a part of our relationship either way. Sexually explicit images, we didn't sit down at part 2 and have this conversation. We probably should have, but we had so many other conversations around the intention for our part 2 that we were going 100% in and putting all of our relational energy towards us, towards this unit that is you and I. So it was understood, I think, from both of us. And looking back now, I can say, we were right, because neither one of us, to my knowledge, has ever had to really deal with this in a real way. And it's not like, well, we never talked about it. We had this understanding, and we just felt from each other that we were all in on this relationship, and we knew that part 1 went wrong, and we were going to put all of our effort into making part 2 really, really right. And what that included for us was not engaging in pornography, or, from my perspective, from my angle, not engaging in, sexually explicit. Like, I'm not putting, once in a while, I'll snap a picture of me working out or something, but it's like me flexing or it's not like my butthole on, in mid squat. Yeah. It's just not going to be that. We take pictures of us in our swimsuits, or I, will take a video of you on my story of, flexing or coming out of the water. And I'm just like, oh my God, he's so handsome. It's not in a way of please validate us. Right. It's something completely different. And I'm not expecting anyone to respond to that kind of picture and be like, wow, you're so hot and sexy and this and that. Let's be real. Most of 89% of my followers are women. And it's like, I'm doing that. I know my intention that when I'm taking a picture working out, I'm showing hey girls, I'm lifting heavy. And if you're trying to change your body composition, this is a great way to do it. This is how I contribute to a healthy body composition. It's not looking for validation in the form of, please think I'm sexy.
No. And I think standing in your sexual power is beautiful, and to showcase that is completely beautiful. And like, I'm not asking you to dress Amish, and you're not asking me to be completely straight-laced. We both have human meat suits. I respond to attractive women who are looking beautiful or sexy, or if I saw a woman who was naked who was beautiful, my meat suit responds to that. That's just reality. I'm a heterosexual man with a strong sex drive. That my physical response to that is one thing. It's different when I have a psychological attachment and pursuit of that.
Yeah, seeking it out.
And for you are a beautiful, sexy woman. To take pictures of yourself and stand in your own sexuality and your own sexiness is completely appropriate. To do that in a way in order to elicit a specific response from men outside of the domain of our relationship, we've decided is not ideal. But there's a threshold of reality where both of us are physical beings that have an innate sexual drive. Mine is outward in the sense of it's masculine penetrating, and yours is an inward feminine reception of that type of energetic exchange. And so there's a tolerance to natural shit. I also think that there is beautiful art in sex, and there's a difference between pornography and thirst trap influencers versus the beautiful portrayal of the human body or of sex or in the relationship. And so, your sister, for instance, has a beautiful business built off of showcasing embodied women in a form that would be representative authentically to their innate sexual beauty.
Yeah, she does boudoir.
Exactly. And so I think that by no means am I trying to be like this freaking Amish Catholic super conservative as it pertains to these realms. I just know that it's a slippery slope when you go to one degree.
Yeah, totally. So next under that would be messaging.
Messaging. And that's kind of the next question or category. We've bucketed messaging, and this is the DMs. This is the instant messaging. This is the text messaging.
Emails.
Maybe it's with strangers. Maybe it's with exes. I think that's exes come up a lot, and we'll get to the ex question, I think, is another one. But this is one where it's just important to set the ground rules, right? Like, do you allocate time, energy, resources towards exchanging in messaging or communication through the forms of, because one thing to like call somebody up, which nobody really does anymore, or FaceTime somebody, that's a little more blatant than it would be just sort of like sliding into DMs. For guys, it's, maybe sliding into a girl's DMs, and a lot of times girls who are beautiful just have a flood of that type of stuff to deal with anyway. Where are you at with partaking in, entertaining those types of messaging relationships?
Yeah, I think, and we haven't really discussed this. I want to at some point talk about it. Maybe this is a good place. It's like, okay, so someone's listening right now, and they're like, yeah, I want to have this conversation with my partner. How do you even bring it up in this regard? Like, say we're on the point of messaging. Unless you see them messaging a girl and you're looking over their shoulder and seeing it, like, it might not come up organically. And I think this is something that we can like preemptively.
Yeah, all of these are.
Talk about.
I would say this entire bucket of questions happens in one sit down.
Yeah, and so it can just be like organic. Like, what do you think about this? Like, what are your thoughts? I don't think it has to be right out of the gate. Like, if we're going to be together, this has to be in place, or you have to behave this way, or this is exactly what I want. Not that it's wrong to say what you're looking for in a partner and how you want to line up on ideals and values, but I think you can start this conversation, whether it's about the exclusivity of the relationship, explicit pictures, or messaging. Just like, hey, what do you think about this? I realize we've never talked about this, and it's like technology is such a huge part of all of our lives. Like, what are your thoughts on this? Yeah,
you definitely don't want to be accusatory in nature, because a certain tone, whether you are accusing somebody literally or not, will feel like you're accusing somebody of that. It's also very closed off, depending on the tone how you bring these up. Like, well, if you want to be with me, here's all the rules you got to follow.
Yeah,
that's super repulsive.
Yeah.
Rather, it's more like, I have a deep curiosity because I am interested in you, I have a deep curiosity as to where your core values exist in the realm of how we're going to use technology underneath this relationship that we're embarking on.
And it may be something that your partner or prospective partner, if you're just getting into dating, has never even really thought about. If they've been single for 5 years, they probably, maybe they have, but maybe they haven't actually sat down and thought about, what do I think about when I get into a relationship? How am I going to deal with these other girls that I've talked to for the last 3 or 4 years or whatever? How am I going to go about this? Like, give them let there be some grace period as people start to get their mind around, like, oh yeah, this is something that I probably need to think about now, or that we probably need to talk about. Don't just jump on them claws deep and like, we have to talk about this. Like, just be open and soft and just like start with asking questions about what they think and let it sort of unfold naturally. And it can be one sit down where you talk about all these things, but it doesn't have to be. Like, this is where discernment comes in. This is where wisdom comes in. I think if your partner is completely closed off to this conversation and they don't want to talk about it, and they're like, you have no right to talk to me about this and you are exclusive, that's also really good information. That's good feedback that, like, if we can't even have this conversation without you getting angry at me, like, I don't know if that's the type of partner that I want to be in a relationship with. I want to be able to talk about all of these things in a safe and loving container.
Yep. And so, again, I think there's, depending on consciousness, intention, and your upfront communication from a place of vulnerability and authenticity, will dictate how you make a decision in this space, and it can go really any way. For us, both of us are committed to not partaking in romantically charged conversation with individuals via messaging, DMs, social media, text messaging. But both of us have a robust set of friends who are of the opposite sex. When we got back together, some of my best friends were girls, and neither one of us have ever been charged, insensitive, or accusatory in nature pertaining to quite a bit of communication with people of the opposite sex. And so it is definitely not a hard, dark line of separation when it comes to who we talk to. Rather, it's more of a trust with a commitment from both of us that, hey, we're not interested in romantically engaging with anybody via messaging outside of our exchange in the relationship.
Yep. Yeah. Wholeheartedly, 100% agree. The few times, like, one of the things that, I am not putting out that energy that I'm available, that I want to be hit on, that I'm looking for validation from men on my Instagram. Like, I'm not putting that message out there. And so the few times that it has happened on Instagram, I'll get a random DM or whatever, guy sliding in, like, I squash it immediately. But you get that less if you're not putting that vibe out. Sure. Right? Like, if you're not putting that energy out, it's not something that you will have to deal with as often. I'm not saying that you won't ever, but... Well,
it's like the digital, I'm not wearing a wedding ring thing, even though I'm married. It's like hey, I'm relatively, even though you know that I'm in a relationship, you can see by my actions and energy that I'm not wearing that wedding ring energetically,
Yeah. Okay. So that's sort of messaging. That's where we stand on it. We basically just squash anything. We certainly don't seek it out. Yeah. And then if anything were to arise in the form of messaging, I mean, you've gotten how many like Russian bots that are like in your DMs?
I hope that everybody gets that, and it's not just me. But yeah,
guys get that all the time. You're just fall into the age group of men that they're gonna bomb you with like, hey, you want to chat? Yeah. And it's like, you'll usually show me like, oh my God, look at this.
5 followers and it's just somebody's ass.
Yeah. And it's just like, oh, this is not good.
It's like butt 69, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, it's not good. So that's kind of where we stand on messaging. Obviously, in all of these conversations, there's a lot of gray area. There's a lot of it. I think the next one that we alluded to is exes that we should probably talk about. This is a sticky point for a lot of people.
Well, it's sticky because it's practical. If you have an ex, which many do when you engage in a relationship, it could be an ex-wife, you could share, or ex-husband, you could share children with that individual. You could share assets, house, dog, possessions. So it's very normal to have a relationship with your ex while also partaking in a romantic relationship that is subsequent to the previous. And this one is obviously, again, not a black and white scenario. It's gray, and it's going to depend. In most relationships that have a significant ex as a part of it, if there are logistics at play, I think there are justification for maintaining some level of communication, almost as if you're dealing with a business partner.
Yep.
It's relatively emotionless. Ideally, that's going to be better for everybody if it's emotionless, but it's definitely lacking a sexual connotation or
there shouldn't
tone.
there shouldn't be a sexual charge,
nor an emotional I miss you type of relationship, or it could turn toxic also, where even if the relationship has nothing left to be had, that you're allocating your time, energy, and resources towards the bitterness that you have from it might even interfere with your new relationship, because that other person's like, geez, that even though they sort of quote unquote hate that person or dislike that person or want to be away from that person, they sure are talking about them a lot, or thinking about them a lot, or reaching out to them a lot. And so,
not that, I mean, you might have a history, you might have deep embedded, especially if things didn't end well, if there wasn't great closure with your last ex, you might miss certain parts of them. You might miss the nostalgia or the inside jokes or the fun that you had, obviously. But if you're in such a state where it's affecting your new relationship, that's good. That's a good indication that you're probably not ready to be in a relationship, in a new relationship, until you either resolve what happened with your ex. You know, maybe you need to explore if that needs to be reopened, obviously, like we did. But it's good feedback that if that's really, you know, at the forefront of your mind, where it's like, I can't stop talking to my ex, and I feel this emotional pull towards them, like, you're probably not ready to be in a long-term relationship past that point.
Right. But again, the point of this is to have the conversation before and set up the expectation for what it will be like going forward when one of you or both of you has to interact with your ex. And so, ground rules. Some people have the most beautiful friendships with their ex-husband and ex-wives where they're co-parenting that I've ever seen, and I'm blown away by how functional it is. And you've got, you know, a lot of families that do holidays together, and it's all blended, and it's new relationships and it's old ones. And
I think that's the exception,
that's like the
not
way.
The rule.
Oh, totally.
But
that is the way the human experience can be, and so I love it when I see that kind of stuff. And
that's the ideal.
But again, that's why this is not a black and white answer. You have the conversation with your most current relationship, and you set a general expectation for how that's going to look.
Yep.
And for us, as we've gotten back together into part 2, I don't have a significant ex relationship in my life, and thus it's not on the table. But we have agreed to we opted in. Both of us opted in individually to say, when I have a conversation with an ex partner, I will let you know the nature of that conversation. I'll let you know whether or not I am interested in engaging further in case there's some level of practicality to it, or whether I'm not particularly interested. And so it's just been a general level of transparent communication with all exes.
Yeah. It's just like, I wanted to, especially in part 2, I did date someone for, you know, a while, and I had to tie up some things with that person as we were back together. Part 2, official, exclusive, monogamous, building a life together. I was living with you, but there were things that I had to tie up logistically, and I wanted you to be not necessarily involved in the conversation, but I wanted you, for my own peace of mind and your peace of mind, to know exactly what the nature of those conversations were, and that it was strictly logistics. It was strictly like, okay, tell me this. Okay, thank you. Like it was like how I would speak to like a boss or something. It was like so professional. And that's all I wanted it to be. And I was very comfortable like showing you every single text. Not that I had to, not that you asked, but I would have been. And we just made it very, very clear. And I hope that added to the building of trust that, we had to like little by little over time and experience. But it's not going to be a good situation if you're having conversations with your ex and your partner doesn't know and you're keeping it from them, even if you're just doing it to protect them and it is innocent. It's just not a good look. It's just not, just don't go down that path. And that would be my recommendation is like, have open dialogue, and your partner has the option to say, you know what, you deal with it. I trust you. I don't really want to know.
Yep.
There is that option. So it's just, again, comes down to dialogue.
Yep, totally. So we've sort of set the stage. We've talked about the complications, the challenges. We've bucketed these different categories. We suggest you go through some of these question, baseline establishing rules, for lack of a better term, ground rules for the relationship at large on how you interact with sex and technology and the dynamic of the relationship. And so getting back to this question that we kind of teed all of this up with, do you have the right in a relationship, in a committed relationship, do you have the right to look through your significant other's devices? That's phones, that's tablets, that's laptops, for any of these potentially inflammatory interactions with others. And dude, this is actually a hard question. When we first started talking about this, I was like, I think I got a pretty clear answer, pretty easy. But the more we thought about it, the more nuance there is. The more I sort of came up with, well, it depends type
It's
answers.
circumstantial. It's completely, I think, in my opinion, circumstantial. I don't think that, say there's 100 people that say that, no, it's never okay to go through your partner's phone ever, end of story.
Right.
I would sit down with those people or ask them, okay, so if you have clear evidence of your partner cheating, or you have a suspicion, something that's not generated from your own head, you saw it with your own eye.
Right.
Or someone you trust told you, hey.
Or they've cheated in the past.
Or they've cheated in the past. Someone you trust told you, hey, I saw your man at a restaurant with another girl and they looked pretty friendly. You're telling me that if those 100 people who say, no, it's never okay, you wouldn't be warranted to be like, you know what, this is affecting my life now. Maybe I open up the conversation and say, hey, did this happen? If they say no, then it's their word against your other friend that has no bias, right?
The most emotionally mature thing to do and the most conscious thing to do would be to sit down and have a civil conversation and an uncharged request.
But I would bet almost all of the dollars in my bank account that out of those 100 people, at least a few would be like, no, this is warranted. I'm doing this. Like I got to figure this out. So
it's not only warranted, it has happened in lives of people that I know and love and trust, to where they partook in that activity of going through their significant other's devices and saved them God knows how many months or years worth of being cheated on or lied to.
That is how a lot of people find out is, not even searching, but maybe they were searching, but maybe it came up, maybe you were snapping a picture and you see a DM come through from a girl. It's like, whatever the message is, or you're trying to send a text to your friend or your family member from your husband or partner's phone and you see something come through. So it's not always like on purpose.
Right.
And so it's like, there's just so much gray area, and I just have a really hard time believing that everyone who says that this is not right, if you were in that situation and you had potentially years with this person, I don't know. It's just not black and white to me. I still maintain the opinion, as we've, navigated through this conversation, I have like softened a little bit, because when we first asked the question, it was like, yeah, totally. Like, this affects your life too.
Yeah.
And I still think that, like, what I keep coming back to is your partner's decision making directly impacts your life now and your future and the life of your children if you have them. So I keep coming back to that. I do think that if you are going to resort to checking email, phone, whatever, I think it'd be great if you could ask permission.
Right.
If that's not an option, I think the prerequisite is that you have to have like basically hard evidence elsewhere.
Yeah.
I don't agree with just like,
warrant.
oh, it's Tuesday. Yeah. Oh, it's Tuesday. I'm going to look through my partner's phone, or that I have the right to go through it anytime I want.
Right. It's like us having a search warrant. You've got probable, evidence that would suggest searching is in the best interest of, ethics and morals for the relationship to be able to search. And let's use this example, okay? You go to a restaurant as a customer, and you have the right to ask, in my opinion, what is this food made with? Yeah. What oils are the food cooked in? Are these hydrogenated unhealthy vegetable oils, or is this, a quality oil or cooked in butter? I think you have the right to ask that question. If the server or waiter refuses to answer that question for you, I would suggest that customer can go into the kitchen and knock on the door and say, hey, I want to see how the food is being prepared. They might get kicked out of the restaurant, but that's the end of the relationship.
And that's the risk that you take if your partner is completely innocent and there's no cheating or anything going on, no foul play going on. You do run that risk of breaching that trust. Totally. Even if you ask, I think.
Now, I think if you go to, that was just traditional restaurant, restaurant XYZ, chain XYZ. If you go to an organic restaurant,
True Food
Kitchen, where one of their little ethos, their little slogans is, we don't use unhealthy oils. And you go into the restaurant and you go, I want to see your oils, kind sir or ma'am who's cooking this food. I think it's warranted for them to be a little bit offended. Like, hey, we've committed in this restaurant to customer relationship. Are you saying you don't believe me, even though I'm making these statements that all is well? I think then to physically get up and go into the back when you've developed this relationship, you've chose this relationship between the healthy restaurant and the health interested customer, to not believe any of those stages, go all the way into the kitchen and look at the oils that are being dealt with. That to me borderlines on some level of compulsiveness, anxiety, neuroses, and I have a hard time, even though technically they could still find, if for whatever reason they could be justified in that search if they were to find oils that were unhealthy or rancid or something along those lines. Even in that case, I think it's bad form to do in a relationship that has established a co-commitment to healthy behavioral patterns from their independent selves.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing that if there are those healthy, wonderful practices, that this is happening all the time.
Right. We're having a conversation of a downstream problem that really is pertaining to upstream solutions, but for the sake of this conversation. And so then moving back into how I would answer this question literally, if your partner has not given you any indication of foul play on their devices, and you, without asking, go straight into their devices and take a look at all of their shit, that's bad form. I'm not saying that's warranting a complete divorce of the relationship or a breakup of the relationship, but expect to cause a significant rift in the relationship with that habit.
Yeah.
I think the answer to this question is you do have the right, you do have the opportunity to pose the question, hey, what is your activity like on your devices? Whether that's just out of curiosity or whether that's from some level of indication that would suggest they might be partaking in foul play on these devices. I think in the dynamic of a relationship, you have the right to ask that question. Mm-hmm. Depending on how they respond, you can make a decision from there. If they respond read their body language, read the way that they articulate themselves, their eye contact. if they say, hell no, you can't look at my shit. No way. There's absolutely no way. And you've got some level of hunch that something is going awry on the behavior with these devices. I mean, that's a red flag. Whether you want to like forcefully, physically take those devices and look through it yourself to validate that, up to you. But I think that you probably have enough evidence if you've got some level of intuition that foul play is going on, and their body language and their response is indicative of something, going on. Yeah. That's evidence enough. I think that's good communication enough. If you've got no evidence whatsoever, rather maybe you have a history of being cheated on, maybe you have some level of anxiety around, maybe this person has a public profile to some degree, and you see that there are people who are of the opposite sex liking their photos and stuff, but it's coming from a place of just neuroses. That's where I was like, just like check yourself before you wreck yourself, because you could be doing more harm to the relationship. Right. So I think the answer to this question is obviously it depends. It's case by case. There's too many unique attributes to each relationship to just get a perfect answer here. But I do think you have the right, and I would suggest not just the right, but it's going to be the best form for the relationship to pose this question if it causes concern for you. You have the right to ask the question, hey, what is your social media activity like? Who are you texting? I'm just curious from a place of love. Yeah. This is what I'm thinking. I would like to open this up to a longer conversation. But I also, and going back to like both of our initial responses, like, oh yeah, dude, if someone's cheating on you, you want to save yourself the heartache, the potential months or years of being lied to, and you got to get down to the freaking dirt and figure it out. But when I think about privacy as an individual and my relationship to, like, say, the government, and should I just allow the government to look at all my devices and all of my activity? They're probably doing it anyway. Right. But their justification would be like, well, if you're innocent, there should be no problem. If you're
it just is invasive.
It's invasive. And I think that every individual has some level of right to their own private activities. Yeah.
I think I ultimately side, like, if this is a spectrum, I definitely land on the side of, if there is suspect or suspicion of foul play, aka cheating, I think you do have more of a right than you don't. Yes. Because it directly affects your life. I don't even know if it's the right. I think a better word is it's warranted. Yeah. It's understandable to do that. If I found out that one of my girlfriends thought her boyfriend was cheating, her husband was cheating, and I found out that she looked at his phone, I wouldn't judge her at all. But so that's where I land on the spectrum of, is this okay or is it not? Black and white ends of the spectrum. I'm here, but so I do fall on the end of the spectrum where you have more of a right than you don't. But your partner also has the right, complete right, to say no.
Yes. Yeah.
And just because they say no doesn't mean they're cheating.
True.
Because I think that there is a good argument, a solid argument for both of these ends of the spectrum. The invasion of privacy, the lack of trust, the affecting my life, and my future. Like, there's a good argument to be made on both ends of the spectrum. This is just currently where I land.
Totally. Yeah, no, I'm aligning with you while also trying to understand the position of being offended, the position of irrationally going through somebody's devices, without consent. And so the answer to this question is ask, have a conversation. There are unique cases where that could be overridden. Say you are in a relationship that's toxic, potentially abusive, and you just need some level of last piece of evidence to make sure that you can leave this relationship, just one last nail in the coffin. So you flip open their iPad and take a look. Yep. There's other cases where you've got, again, we're not addressing the unique cases. Say somebody works for the government and they're a part of the Trump court case, and it's like, yo, I got classified documents here. I can't be sharing my devices with you.
Yeah, those are the outliers.
That's what we're not talking about. But privacy, individual privacy, is huge. It's absolutely huge.
Yeah.
Relationships also don't always last forever. And so certain information, let's say you've got on your device specific details as it pertains to your family's inheritance and the inheritance that you will get 20 years from now, and you have a significant other who you're dating, but it's a serious relationship, and they're able to see the fact that you've got $5 million coming your way. And all of a sudden, without anybody knowing, they're slowly trying to groom you to get into that. And you're like, what the hell's going on?
This sounds like a movie.
It does. So I'm saying there are unique cases. And the answer to this is not clear. It's not black and white. I do think that to break a little bit of a rule in the relationship of not getting consent prior to looking at someone's device is sort of like washed away when you find confirming evidence that they are committing a larger sin, for lack of a better term, than going through with this without consent.
It's like a behind the back pass in basketball. It's a great pass if it makes it there. It's a shitty pass if it doesn't make it there.
Yeah, well, it's like
it could be the exact same pass. If the person catches it, it's a good pass. If they don't, what were you thinking?
It's like, I'm running late to this event. I'm going to go 30 miles over the speed limit to get there. I'm probably going to get a ticket, but I'm going to get there, and that's more important to me.
Yeah.
So I completely understand that. All that to say, it's nuanced. It's complicated.
Oh my gosh. Just like every other thing in life. It's not black and white.
Like, I had to sleep on it and ended up waking up, going through all of the different scenarios and trying to use analogies in real life because it is complicated. And I hope it's been productive for people to understand, but it's definitely one that's changed my course of thought, which was a little more direct and clear until I started thinking about all of these other scenarios, especially the scenario of, wait, I wouldn't want the government to be looking through my devices.
Yeah. No, I think it's a solid argument. Solid arguments all around. I think we don't need to keep rehashing it, but I am really curious to hear what people think. We'll definitely open up the conversation in some of the reels and posts that we do on Instagram. And, we say often, like, we love exposing our listeners to other points of view and maybe unpopular opinions from guests and us. And if you completely disagree with us, I mean, overall, we're saying it's nuanced and it depends. But if you completely disagree with us, that's okay. We're allowed to have different viewpoints, different opinions. We all have different life experiences that shape and mold our points of view. So, like, it's okay to disagree. But all that being said, I would love to hear from people on YouTube, on our Instagram. Like, we're going to start the conversation and would love to hear other people's opinions on this.
Hit us up. I would love to hear stories of if anybody has gone through this type of experience with their significant other or heard of others who have. Would love to get more information as it pertains to, how you navigate this. And then just the entire conversation today at large. How are you dealing with, what are some of the cases that you've been through pertaining to sex, technology, and relationships?
Yeah. What do you want to hear from us?
Yeah. What did we miss? What really stood out? What resonated? We would love to hear.
Yeah. Before we go, I want to know what for you, my love, is your medicine?
Well, my medicine, after over a month of spending a lot of time with family and having very little availability to find some intimate moments with my significant other, with the love of my life, to be able to connect. We're back in San Diego, and we don't have my parents or my nieces or my nephews or my siblings one wall away. We've been able to be a little bit more free as it pertains to our intimacy and our connection. And so that is just medicine for me, baby.
Yeah, that's night and day for sure. Do you want to hear mine?
What about you?
My medicine today has been, my birthday was a couple days ago, and you got me a really cool gift that has been really fun to experiment with. And you got me a bunch of gifts.
This does not pertain to the intimacy hour that I was mentioning.
One of the gifts that you got me were blood flow restriction bands. And
I got a huge pump from the last couple days.
And so I've been using them the last couple days, and they're just really, they're fun. It is intense, but I really like it. And I'm excited to do these, try them out for a few months and see how my body responds. And, we're such advocates of like movement and working out, exercise, lifting weights that like, it's fun to try something new. Totally. It's fun to try a new tool, a new device, and see how it works. And there's a lot of research behind it, which is really fun. And I'm hoping that we can get the founder or whoever that guy is. I think he's the founder, CEO, or whoever, on the podcast to talk about the benefits of blood flow restriction.
Yeah, I would love that.
And as it pertains to body and everything like that. So, that's my medicine.
Love it.
Thank you for the gift. All right, you guys, thank you for hanging out with us. Let us know what you thought of the episode. Let us have it. Let us have your opinions. We won't get offended if you completely disagree with us. But yeah, these are important things to talk about, and we appreciate you being here with us. We'll talk to you next time. Go spread some light. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much for listening.
If you enjoyed that, check out right over here for some more fun clips.
Oh, and you're going to want to subscribe.
Bye.